On this one. Welcome back to another episode of Comrades, a weekly discussion of the FX television series, The Americans. My name is Scott Malkus. I'm your co-host. I'm the TV editor of PopDose.com, as I can attest the article I actually wrote this week.
He has returned.
I have returned with my column, The Three Strike Rule. And with me, as always, is your other co-host, my other co-host. How does that work? How can I be your host and he's your co-host? Anyway, Jeff Marsick, ladies and gentlemen. Jeff Marsick, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right.
Jeff is the author of two fine comic books. One of them is called... Go ahead.
One of them is called Z-Girl and the Four Tigers, about a special ops team led by a female zombie, and the other one is a noir thriller called Dead Man's Party, about a hitman who puts a contract out on himself.
Ouch! Why would he do that, Jeff? Why would he do that?
You got to read the book to find out.
That's right.
Go to deadmansparty.org.
Woohoo! All right. Well, we're going to jump right in. Well,
those shameless plugs
they're not shameless
for?
Plugs, sir. Nobody's paying us, so we have to do what we can to get people to read our other works. Because, you know, as wonderful as wonderful as it is to sit and listen to us yak and talk for an hour and waste of people's time.
It's not a waste of time. This is infotainment.
Fine television commentary. We got to get the word out, man. Got people here, you know. Like how else will people going to know that I'm going to publish a novel in serial form in like a month, unless I announce it on the podcast?
That's right.
Huh? On PopDose. That's right. If you're listening on PopDose, or if you're listening on Southgate Media, check out PopDose in about a month, and you'll be seeing a new book coming out. And
3 chapters a week.
3 chapters a week, except the holiday weeks. Then I'm going to do 2 chapters those weeks, because they're Memorial Day week and 4th of July week. We're going to just do 2 those weeks. And it's a really cool little venture that I'm doing. There's going to be music and an original piece of artwork for each chapter, which is kind of exciting. And
when do you have to do the artwork?
Well, I've gotten about, right now, I think I have about 30 people.
Really?
30 different artists. Yeah. Good friend of mine named Villamar Cruz, who is a filmmaker in his own, and he's a storyboard artist, but he's a filmmaker first. He's doing 4 of the pieces. And then I've just been going around to people I know who are photographers and graphic designers and just artists, and they're all getting a chapter. One artist is actually going to do, I think, a wood carving thing that she does. So it's going to be fun. And yeah, I'm pretty excited. That to me is the most exciting part, is just that, I have no idea what the artwork's going to look like. And that's what's cool to me. I'm just giving the chapters out and say, have at it, and I'm going to put it in there. It's going to be kind of like when you're reading the New Yorker.
It's going to be like that. It's going to be like that Johnny Cash video where they. What song was that? Where there's little, like every 20 seconds is a different piece of artwork to match.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That's a great video. Oh, what was that? We should find that and put it on the comments.
Yeah,
that's a cool video where people just drew like a little clip and they put it into the video.
They did awesome. They did it with Star Wars too. They did every single scene from Star Wars.
Yeah, in fact, Bill, who he worked on Empire Strikes Back version of that. It was awesome. His version, he had his kids in with it. Those are great. Have you ever watched those?
Oh yeah, it's hysterical. Yeah.
Anyway,
that's what you got planned.
That's what I got coming up, in addition to the other things I'm trying to write, including a pilot that's top secret that I can't talk about because it's with you, and I don't want people to know that we're writing a pilot.
Oh, that's right. I was you mentioned a pilot. I was like, do I know about this? Is this the one that we're working on?
Yeah, it's that one. I don't want to talk about that yet because it's not done yet. So, anyway. Oh, and if you watch The Americans and you listen to Comrades, it's a show about the 80s. And hey, the novel I wrote, it takes place in the 80s. It takes place in the year 1987, which is the year before Jeff and I graduated.
A year a decade that's near and dear to both our hearts.
Yeah, it's funny because that year I just made a comment on Facebook to a friend of ours the other night. I was like, I'm listening to Stevie Ray Vaughan, and it reminds me of going to see Stevie Ray Vaughan 25 years ago with my friend Phil. And Phil's like, oh yeah, I remember that. We just started rattling back and forth all these concerts we saw in the year 1987. We saw Clapton, we saw U2, we saw Night Ranger, we saw Rush. I think we saw Yes that year. I was like, where did I have? Where was all the disposable income I had back then? Because I don't have it now. It doesn't exist anymore. Or it just concerts were concerts $25 back then, and
Yeah, that's a combination of things, I think.
Oh, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers I saw that year. Anyway. Well, all right. I'm sorry. That was a random thing. Hey, speaking of spy things, you still haven't seen Captain America yet, have you?
I have not. I meant to do it like the other day, and I didn't get around to it.
I like that movie. It's definitely a spy movie more than an action hero movie. So anybody that's looking for like a good kind of spy thriller, obviously it's got all that Marvel, uh, whatever mumbo jumbo framework of storytelling in it, but it's also a throwback to kind of the '70s movies that were really great conspiracy thrillers like The Parallax View and 3 Days of a Condor, and Marathon Man. Did you ever see Marathon Man?
Oh yeah, yep.
Oh, that movie rocks, dude.
Yep.
That movie is one of my favorites. Is it safe?
3 days of the Condor too. I really liked.
3 Days of the Condor is great too. All right, I'm sorry for the going on a tangent because every time I do this, Jeff's like, "Yeah, it's midnight. Let me go to bed."
Well, no,
but
it's
not
actually
midnight.
no, it's only 10:45 on an Easter.
Only
Sunday,
11. So I got a good 45 minutes before you're like, okay, let's wrap this up. This week's episode was called New Car. It was written by a guy named Peter Ackerman. It was directed by John Dahl. You know what John Dahl directed? He's directed some really cool movies.
No.
He directed Red
Tell us.
Rock West. Remember Red Rock West with Nicolas Cage and Dennis Hopper?
Heard of it, never saw it.
That movie is fantastic. I think he directed The Last Seduction. Remember that movie with Linda Fiorentino?
Love her.
Do you remember that movie, though?
I do.
It was another one he directed. He's directed some other things, but he's kind of migrated to television. I think he's done some Breaking Bads. I think everybody's worked on Breaking Bad. And some other stuff, and I should have that in front of me, but I can't touch my computer to do any of that research, so I'm not going to look it up. I'm sorry, but if you would like to look it up,
I'll look it up real quick.
I will gladly stall for a few minutes while you're looking up what John Dahl has
Because
directed.
the last thing we need is for Scott to touch his computer, because then that means that
we'll lose the video feed, and perhaps everything will shut down. I don't know. Skype is not working very well for me. As we talked about last week, when Jeff had to do the Skype call blind, he couldn't see me the whole time.
Oh, he did some Justified. He did an episode of The Bridge, Hannibal, Ray Donovan, Person of Interest, Vampire Diaries.
Oh wow, he's done everything.
Dexter, Californication, Arrow, Caprica,
nice.
True Blood. Wow, he really has.
He's touched about everything. He's a working director. Is what you call it.
Last Seduction. But he's got Rounders, too.
Rounders, that's what he did. That was probably his last big picture, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then it looks like 2007 he comes on over. A lot of one-offs. One episode of Battlestar Galactica, one episode of Breaking Bad, one episode of Terriers. Terriers, that's too bad that show got taken off. I actually like that
Did The Bridge make it to a second season, or is that gone?
The Bridge did make it to a second season. Oh, he did a Homeland, too.
Yeah, he probably has a certain feel that they like for certain episodes, and he's like, hey, who'd really be good for this? John Dahl. Oh, yeah, okay. Maybe that's how it works.
Maybe.
I don't know. I work in animation, man.
Maybe he's a script doctor? Like, someone writes something, and then they bring him in to, like, do something better? I don't know. Because he does, like, a lot of one-offs.
No, he directs. He's just a working director.
What am I talking about? I don't know.
I don't know how you.
You know what it is, because I'm looking at Peter Ackerman who did the writing, and that's why I just crossed my circuits. Never mind, ignore.
What has Peter Ackerman written for, Jeff?
Well, they've got Ice Age, but I gotta see if this is.
He worked on Ice Age. Excellent. That's interesting that he make the trend, but that just shows that you can write anything.
Well, they've got two Peter Ackermans listed here. One is he's only has one writing credit, which is The Americans, and they got another Peter Ackerman who's down for Ice
Well, then
Age.
maybe this is that Peter Ackerman. Obviously, the one that we're talking about is the one with one writing credit.
Yes.
Perhaps he was a writer's assistant, or who knows? Maybe this is his first gig and he's done a lot of good stuff. I don't know. That's the cool thing about television. You can break in. You can be a playwright, and sometimes we're looking for playwrights. That's how Tom Fontana got his big break for St. Elsewhere. He was a playwright, and they wanted playwrights and people who were characters to come onto that show. And now look at Tom Fontana. He's a mastermind of television. You know Tom Fontana.
I've heard of him.
he created a little show called Homicide: Life on the Street and Oz.
Oh,
I don't know if you've heard of those shows. Yeah. So.
I have heard of those. Yes.
Okay.
I didn't know he was a playwright before he came out.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a good, cool dude. All right. Enough yakking.
All right. Enough nonsense. Let's talk about new car.
Before we go, yeah, because I took notes last night. I took exhaustive notes until the last 5 minutes of the show, and then I had to go to bed. So I just want to say Henry killed me. That last scene with Henry killed me.
Yeah,
that acting was spot on, man.
Yeah.
And for all the little that he's been able to do this season, wow, great acting. But we're not there yet. We're starting with Martha and Clark sitting in bed, watching the news, getting all snuggly in their PJs, TV on in the background. And Martha says, "There's one other thing, Clark. I don't want to spy for you anymore.
I like the people I work with.
I don't feel that it's right that do this to them." And Clark flips out, man. Says, "You can't put me in a position where I have to choose between my responsibility to our country and you." And when I wrote that down last night, and I heard him say that, one of the things I love about the show is all the double meanings that go on. I think that's on purpose because this is a show about numerous characters having, two lives and everything having a second purpose. And I feel like that line has double meaning that we may come back to at some point, because in this situation, yes, I think Clark, a.k.a. Philip, a.k.a. Mishka, would probably say, "I'm not going to choose Martha over my country." But when it comes down to it, especially with this last scene of this episode, do you think that Philip would choose his family over his country?
You know what? And it's something that always runs through my head as I'm watching this, and things that happen, especially, we'll talk about something that happens in this episode. I think that it's starting to... I think he would. I think he's not quite there yet, but I think there's going to come a point where he just says, yeah, family's more important than, than the mission. And
That's right.
There's going to be a lot of... I think there's going to be some betrayals, and there's going to be, just some letdowns by the party. And
I think the same thing could be said about Stan. If Stan decides, something pulls Stan to become a communist or KGB spy, it will because he chooses Nina over his country. It'll be the same thing,
right?
And so it's an that's to me that's kind of like the theme, a running theme of this whole season. So.
And you see that where later on in this episode when it's after he comes home with the new car, which we'll talk about, and he looks at Elizabeth and he's like, "Don't you kind of like some of the things here? Like, don't you kind of enjoy being here?" And that's the little tipping point that is not a weakness so much, but it's that little impetus for him to choose family over.
And I'm glad you say that because that leads to the next scene because. After, Clark says, "Don't make me choose," then we get to the next scene, which is Phil and Henry I call them by short names now, Phil and Hank. Oh, no, just kidding. Philip and Henry are shopping. They're looking around for cars, and they're looking at the brand new Z28. Remember the Z28, man? I thought those were the coolest cars. Although I like the late 70s model that had a little bit more lip that... Do you remember those ones?
I had
like the Smokey and the Bandit type.
I had an
Trans Am.
86 IROC. Was my
you
first
had
car.
one?
Yep.
What?
T-tops, red. Oh yeah.
That was your first car.
That was my first car.
Jeez, how come I never rode in that car? Where was I? Were we not close friends in high school, or were we just
No,
you
this
just
was
driving around girls in high school?
no. I had in high school. I was driving the family diesel station wagon.
Oh, okay, that makes me feel better because I was driving a Delta '88.
Oh yeah. No, back in the days when diesels you could hear from like a couple miles away.
And it wasn't cool to drive diesel.
No, not at all. No. That was my high school car. No,
Okay.
my first car, mine was in college, was an '86
Gotcha.
IROC.
Well, there's a great line that the salesman comes up. They're looking at the Z28 on the car room floor, and then the salesman says to Philip, which I thought was a great line, "Why shouldn't you feel all that speed, power, and freedom?" And it's like, oh, that's another theme that's going on there. It's like that's running through his head. It's like, why shouldn't I be able to feel this? I'm here. You're making me live here. You took me away from my family. I never get to see my family and everything.
Right.
And so what does he do? He buys the car.
Yep.
And we don't see the aftermath of that until what's next? We see Anton again. This episode's just like there's all these quick scenes, which is like sometimes it's annoying, but this one it just makes it feel like there's so much more going on than it really is. It's like, oh, let's show you exactly 30 seconds of a scene that they cut in there, and that's what. But this was an interesting thing where we cut to Vasily, who I was wrong. I misidentified the guy who got shot. I can't remember his name, but it wasn't Vasily. Vasily was the old man that Nina was getting information from.
Yes,
and he got yanked out of the center Russian embassy in the United States, and now he's in charge of the computer lab in wherever someplace cold in Russia.
Did you see that opening shot? I couldn't tell if we had just gone to a commercial for Fargo, or if this was we were like in Yakutsk or someplace in Russia.
We were in Russia, and obviously Anton is not being cooperative. He's not eating. He's not doing anything. And they bring in Vasily, who's like, Mother Russia is not easy. Always speaks in. They're talking. Why even try the Russian accent? Why don't you stop me before I try that, Jeff? You should just say don't.
You didn't clear it with me.
I'm sorry. So he says, "Why your Mother Russia is easy?" And then says something about your people have always persevered through years of persecution or something along the lines. And he says, "There's something about you that always keep hope alive." And Anton's just looking at him like, "Who are you?" And then he hands Anton the bug. For the first, you see this glimmer of life in Anton's eye. He says, all the information that you were not allowed to see when you were in America is on this machine right here. Eat something and then take a look." And you see Anton's eyes, his brain suddenly starts igniting, starts thinking again. It's like, oh, I can at least something will engage me while I sit here and mourn the loss of my family and everything.
Right.
So that was it. Then we don't see that the rest of the episode.
Right.
Just get that taste.
Just get that little teaser in there for the next episode
whatever. Then Rock This Town gets on. Great song.
Yep.
And Philip and Henry come home. They're wearing Ray-Bans, although I think they're the fake kind. And they're dancing to Rock This Town. And did you ever do that kind of cool stuff that your dad? I didn't. My dad wouldn't listen to rock music, so I didn't.
No.
Never danced in the driveway with my dad.
No, I never did that either.
No. I was impressed that the few times my dad could name drummers that I listened to. He'd say, "Oh, that guy sounds like Neil Peart." I'm like, "How do you know who that is?" Like, what the heck? My dad knows who Rush is? So that pretty much ends the teaser. Elizabeth comes out like, "What is this? This is a brand new car." And does he say, at least it's not a plane? Is that what he said?
Yeah.
At least it's not plain. Which, to me, it's like, and as I watched the rest of this episode, I was thinking, dude, aren't you supposed to be like inconspicuous driving around town? Wouldn't it be better for the to be driving around like a simple station wagon, But I don't know. He's fallen under the spell of America.
Well, later on when he goes to meet with Kate and he kind of leaves the car off on one side, I mean, I thought he was kind of getting second thoughts and was gonna. It was like that scene in Breaking Bad where he torches the car,
right?
And I thought it was gonna be something like that because he kind of like strokes it, almost like I was like, was he just saying goodbye to the car?
But I think, well, I think at the end of that sequence with Kate, he's having second thoughts about owning such a
Yes.
materialistic item. Definitely. Okay, we come back to Act One. Ivanovich is sitting there listening to, trying to read a report that Oleg has written, and Oleg's reports are too scientific and too. He's like, I can't give this to my people.
I
My
don't
boss is
understand the
gonna.
words that are coming out of your mouth.
So then Oleg basically explains what stealth airplanes do, and stealth technology.
Yep.
And I like that. What I like about having Oleg in the show is he is that buffer between the people who understand everything that they're talking about and people like me who need to be have it broken down in layman's terms. Because once he explained, because seriously, I always thought a stealth plane was just a flat plane. I didn't. It was like, well, big deal. It's a flat plane, so it looks like a shadow. Big deal. But then when he explained how the radar bounces off of it and it can keep it in, I was like, oh, that makes sense now. Duh. Wow. My caveman brain understands something like that. Cool. He also points out that Anton, what his real skill is, which is really cool, which is Anton can engineer the angle of the plane so that the radar does bounce off it. So now we do see, besides ARPANET, we really understand why Anton was important. He's not, and I like that because it's kind of shows what Anton's role will be for the communists. That's it's kind of like when the Americans stole nuclear technology and a bomb technology and brought those scientists over to make the Manhattan Project. This is it's just like.
Well, it lends a complexity to what he's doing too. It's not so simple to be like, oh, he just does this thing. No, you've got to angle the planes, smooth, change the angles on the airplane so that it reflects, blah, blah, blah. Well, that adds a complexity to what he's doing. So now it's
right.
Like, oh, okay, now it's not just everybody can do that.
And, I just had this thought because there's something when we find out about the submarine later in this episode, makes you wonder, could Anton fudge the facts? Could Anton mess with the information so that they can't get stealth technology? That they don't do it right? Who knows? Which that's another thing I really love about the show is like you're constantly asking these questions about who's right, who's wrong, who's going to manipulate a situation for their own betterment, and who's going to, I hate to use this, but who's going to screw who, basically,
Right.
But it's not. But like I said, what I said at the top of this podcast, I've never gotten to use that before. At the top of the podcast, not what I mentioned. What I like about the show is like there's all these layers to the show. So, everything has a double meaning. It feels like everything has 2 or 3 meanings, and I like that. Even the children sometimes are doing things that have 2 or 3 meanings, and I like that. It's not, I think that's.
Well, it's one of the things. It's one of those things that's also kind of infuriating. It's cool, but it's infuriating at the same time because you always have to be. You can't take anybody at face value.
Right.
So even when Paige comes down and she acquiesces about stuff that she's done, and I'm sorry, and I just want to hang out with the church people, and because I don't trust it anymore. And the problem is that when you watch a show like this, you get so attuned to doing that when you watch every other show, now you don't trust anything that goes on there. Watching Modern Family, and I'm like, she's full of it. I don't believe it.
Phil is scheming against the rest of the family. That Phil, I don't trust him one bit. Yeah. That's true. That is true. I think we've kind of gotten to that point in television, though. I mean, if you watch Game of Thrones, it's the same way. You don't know who to trust. Everybody has an angle that they're working on that show, and I feel like this is one of them. And what I was thinking about again today is what I like about the show is, and this episode reinforced that is the idea of loyalty and beliefs and doing what you believe is right. And even though I've been thinking about Philip and Elizabeth and how dedicated they are to their beliefs and to their communist beliefs, and we obviously, with history behind us, we know what the communists did to people. But I don't think Philip and Elizabeth know that because they've been yanked out of their country and they've been put in America and they've been fed this information, and they don't have the information of what's going on in their homeland. All they have is You're fighting for the cause. You're fighting for the cause. America's equal. America's evil. And if an American was taken at the age of 17 and told you're going to be undercover in another country and fed the information over and over again, they're evil, they're evil, they're evil, and those people might be good people. You're going to meet good people everywhere. I think my point is we keep meeting good people. We keep meeting people who are KGB, who are supposed to be our enemy as Americans. As you and I, we grew up in the early 80s. We grew up in the 80s. There's no doubt about it. Our formative years were the 80s because we turned 10, 1980, and graduate high school, and our entire formative years were under basically one president. I think George Bush Sr. was an extension of Reagan's policies, and so we had basically this one policy, this one thing, which was the people in the Soviet Union, Russia, they are our enemy and they are evil, evil empire, the evil empire. And now, it's like that. I feel like having been fed that our whole lives, it's just interesting to me to see the other side of it, to see people like you and me, people like our parents, let's say, who were fed a different line, but they're trying to live good lives. They're just good people, but they've got a job to do, and they're. I don't know. Am I rambling?
It's all about the propaganda that you buy into. I mean, the same thing can be applied to people who are devout in their faith. They're fed, whether you may not believe in their particular religion, but they buy it hook, line, and sinker. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad people. It's just that's just the cause that they're fighting for. That's the flag that they're carrying.
And I think that and I think at the end of this episode where Elizabeth is just so pissed at Ronald Reagan and says he'll do anything, kill women, children, nuns. She starts saying all these things because it refers to what's happening in Nicaragua. As trying to say it properly, like Lee Tergesen does as Larry. So he says it properly every time. Nicaragua. I'm like, what the heck? Okay. But she's saying that because we heard what we're funding down in Nicaragua, right? What they're doing, what those evil people are doing. Yet we know, like I said, as history tells us, what the communists have done, what they did.
Exactly.
And it's like, but we're the heroes, quote unquote. The Americans are the heroes.
Right.
It's just, I just love that about the show. It's so weird because you don't think that this is that kind of a deep thinking show.
But that's why that final scene with Henry and his emotional.
Yes. My God.
I'm such a good. I am a good person. Yeah, I did this and blah blah blah. But I'm a good person. It's one of those things that I think that it. I feel like in any other show it would have been heavy handed. It would just been like one more. But it did work as kind of a reinforcement to remember that, like you said, these people. They are good people. They're bent. They're twisted. Right. Just a little bit based on ideology, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad people. Although we say that about they did they have killed people and whatnot.
Well, in the world of anti-heroes that we've grown accustomed to watching on television, they're on a scale of 1 to 10 of anti-heroes, they're I don't know. 4 or 5. I don't think that they're as bad as Walter White or Tony Soprano,
right?
Or Ben from from Lost. Even Ben redeems himself in the end. But speaking of good people, I think that, and this is my little segue. Hey, I haven't done that in a while. It's segue of the week. Dun, 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 going back to the beginning of the show. Speaking of good people, Phil has a tape. And he's editing it together, a tape, the most flawlessly edited micro tape I've ever heard.
I know, right? Yeah.
I'm like, really? No. It's like I've messed with tapes before. It's going to sound like that, exactly like that, by the way.
Dude, we've done mixtapes. How many mixtapes have we done? I haven't even. Yeah. I've never put a mixtape as smooth together as.
Yeah, and he's doing it flawlessly.
Yeah.
But he puts this tape together because this tape is basically going to make Gad and all those guys that Martha works with seem like a bunch of pigs.
Yep.
He's edited. Yeah, he's re-edited the tape to make it sound like these guys are saying, I wouldn't do it with a Martha unless you gave me a bottle of scotch. And another guy says, a bottle of scotch and a bag over her head, and they all laugh. And what I loved about that moment is both Philip and Elizabeth are pained to have to play this tape for Martha. it's like they both have an emotional investment in Martha now. Obviously Philip slash Clark does because he's married her. He spends all this time with her, and I think it's to put himself into that kind of a situation, and I think that there is a bond forming with Martha. I really do, and I think we see that later in the episode.
Yeah,
there is a bond forming with her. But I honestly feel that Elizabeth, as was it Jennifer, that's the sister. I think she formed a bond with Martha. I think that there's something there that they you know.
Well, I think there's parts
They've
of
kind
this
of
job.
suckered Martha into being a spy, and they didn't,
Yeah,
you know.
and I think there's parts of this job that it leaves a bad taste in their mouth every now and then.
Right.
And this is one of those things where they know that they've got a simple rube in Martha that they're taking advantage of, and this just goes a little bit beyond. She doesn't deserve this.
Right.
She's done everything we've asked her to, and she's just she's naive.
Yeah, and I think that it's interesting. That was interesting too. I mean, maybe we've seen a little bit more of this season. Is Elizabeth? I think is responding as a woman as well,
Yeah.
not just as like this friend, but I think Clark says, "Do you think that'll work when he plays the tape?" And Elizabeth is like, "Yeah, that'll work." Like how awful it is what they're saying.
Yeah.
She's like, "That'll work," as if she's as if Carrie Russell's never heard that before. But but that's not the only thing. Elizabeth's distracted in that scene, and this leads up to the great scene where, Elizabeth is like distracted about the car, and Philip's like, "Well, what's the matter with the car?" And then he goes into that whole bit you talked about earlier. Don't you enjoy this sometimes? This house, this clothes, that closet full of beautiful shoes, and he basically gets her to admit that yes, I like those things. She says it's nicer here, it's easier here, but it's not better.
It's not better. Yeah.
Right. And but she does say something earlier that is like, I just want you to be happy. It's just funny because Elizabeth seems to oscillate between wanting Philip to be happy and not knowing, what what happiness is. She has no idea what happiness is. I think that she's just messed up in the head.
Right.
The closest thing she has to happiness at all is probably, trying to connect with her kids, but she can't even do that.
She fumbles through that. Yeah.
Yeah, she's in trouble. Okay, so we have that scene, and then we get to the Lucia storyline, which is Lucia goes rogue, and dude, okay, Lucia goes in and she shoots Larrick. She's broken into his house, which shocked me because he comes home from someplace. I guess that's what it is. He comes home and she's already there.
Right.
All right. He must have been at the gym because he's a SEAL, and she shoots him with a trank gun, and. As soon as she shot with the trank gun, I'm like, "Oh, honey, that was a bad idea."
Yeah,
because this guy, he's already fighting internally, suppressing the poison from getting to his heart, so that he goes unconscious. He's already like, "I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna fight this until I'm like," and he does. He goes after her, and he gets the gun and twists it around until.
And it's that typical. It's that typical that cliche or trope fight, two people, one gun, and then it goes off, and then he goes down, and you're like, oh, she, clearly she shot him again with another tranquilizer, but no, she's the one who got darted. So,
right. And she goes down because she's about half his body weight.
Yeah,
and they're both unconscious, which I like. Oh, Lucia, your days are numbered, hon. Your days,
especially when he wakes up before her.
Yeah.
Nothing good can come from that.
Yep. We have that happen. They go unconscious. We cut to Stan. He's got the FBI surveillance documents that Oleg has requested. His wife says something, I'm going to have S graduation. What the heck is that, S graduation?
It's the EST. The S.
EST? EST?
Yeah. Remember that program she was going through?
Okay. So she's got graduation now.
Yeah.
From her cult.
Yes.
Is it a cult?
Yep.
Okay.
Pretty much. Call a spade a spade. Pretty much is. Was.
Her character has been so underutilized this season. It's too bad.
Yeah, it really is. She pretty much just shows up to kind of like to provide a little barb in Stan's life, just to show just what a sad sack his life is. He just can't win.
No, he can't win. He's the last week I wasn't feeling bad for Stan. This week I felt bad for Stan. But yeah.
That scene where she's like
disappointed because she was a strong character, and I thought because she became a main character on the show she was going to have more to do, but so far this season she's been very minor. I mean, Paige has more to do, and Paige, I remember that Paige isn't in an episode more than I remember Stan's wife in an episode. I mean, seriously.
I'd like to see more of their. I'd like to see what's going on with their kid, with their son.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is that Stan's wife, she's basically given up on the marriage, and Stan clearly is kind of like he's phoning it in. So the kids gotta, when you've got two parents that are kind of like that in a basically a broken house, the kids got to be doing something, which will bring get Paige involved.
Maybe the kid's hanging out at the church too. He's either at the video arcade or the church. Which do you think?
I don't think the church.
He's peddling marijuana behind the video arcade.
Yeah.
Hey kid.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. Why not?
Just say yes. Just Say No hasn't come out yet, has it?
No, not yet.
Yeah, that Different Strokes episode hasn't appeared with Nancy Reagan on.
No, not yet. We're still in 82.
We're still in 1982. Hey, can you do me a favor while you're sitting there? Look up when John Belushi died. I want to know when John Belushi died.
I did. We did this.
I know it was in March of 82, but I want to know the exact date. I just want to...
March 5th, yes?
Was it? Okay, that's all I want to know. This show is so meticulous about their details, and we see a date down here. Did you see the date?
I saw the date, March 18th.
Yeah, so I just was like
March 5th, 1982. Belushi died.
Okay, thank you very much. I do the same thing. Like every time something shows up, like they screwed up. That couldn't happen there. I'm not the only one, huh?
So
I'm going to show them.
So Reagan's speech. So Reagan's speech when they're watching Reagan on the thing, and he's given it was the agenda is victory speech on April 26, 1982.
What?
Yep.
So that speech was the wrong.
It's a little bit forward. So, but hold on a second. The date of the file was 3/18, but that's when he submitted it. So when he got it back,
that's when they sent it back to him.
I thought that was his. I thought he had put in his.
No, the date on the file is a month hasn't passed since.
It could have. I mean, government works slow.
No, that date on the file was when that file was submitted, sent back to him, because that's the date you get on there. Today's date is March 18th.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow,
so
they jumped ahead.
Yeah, a little bit.
They cheated. Dang it. All right. Well, they could have fixed that. They could have made it May.
Yeah, but then you wouldn't have such a good soundbite from Reagan.
You just said it was from April 1982.
I know. You said that, but they could have... Oh, I get you. They moved
Yeah. See, in the calendar, it goes January, February, March, April, then May. May is the month that follows April. I know it's hard to remember because you're a little old now. Of course, I'm the one who just had to recite it in my head out loud that April follows May. Wait, April doesn't follow May! Ah! It's May follows. That's what I get for trying to set Jeff up. Okay, and New England is not a state. Okay. Larry calls Elizabeth. Elizabeth decides she's going to go back. It's one of those quick scenes where Elizabeth is about to leave the house. She gets a phone call. Okay, so let's move on to Clark makes an unexpected visit to Martha. I got to get on a plane. I'm going to Atlanta. You're never going to be able to see me. It's supposed to be our time tonight. But I thought I'd stop by and have breakfast. And she goes, "Oh, Clark, you're so sweet. You're such a sweetheart." And then she's going to like, "Oh, I'll have breakfast. Let's warm up the meatloaf from tonight." Have you ever had meatloaf for breakfast?
No, God, no.
That's I guess that'd be like having steak and eggs. It's like meatloaf and eggs. That's what she said.
I don't know. It sounds awful. Anyway, any way you try to sell it sounds awful.
Well, if it's good meatloaf, I guess. Anyway, she cuts herself. How the heck did she cut herself?
I have no idea. I saw
the sharpest pan I've ever seen.
Yeah, I know.
But she's bleeding. I wouldn't it have been funny. It was like that Dan Aykroyd, Julia Childs thing. She's like, oh, just a little bit blood everywhere. And then Clark faints and his wig falls off. She's like, oh, Clark, you're gone. Oh, they all die. Anyway, that wouldn't have been funny. That would have been terrible. But
Clark, it would have been funny, but that would have been the end of the show.
Because they would have jumped the shark.
But he's got the tape all ready to play.
He's ready to play the tape, and
his mixtape of hate.
Mixtape, and that's the name of the tape. Mixtape of hate. Top tunes of 1982, March and April, because we're jumping ahead.
That's right.
And
he doesn't play for it.
He changes his mind. She kind of says, I was wrong for being mean to you. Kind of plays nice, and she appreciates him doing what he's doing. She sort of apologizes. She doesn't come right out and say she's going to continue to do it. But he doesn't play the tape for her, which is interesting. There's a couple moments like that in this episode where, excuse me, I've got a lizard in my throat. Sorry about that.
I don't know where the hell that just came from.
I don't know. I had something like stuck in my throat. I had, this big Easter dinner we had, and
did you have lizard for Easter dinner?
Just a lot of milky dairy products that kind of make you all gurgly. And don't you have that happen to you?
No, not usually.
Sorry.
For those of us who are lactose tolerant.
Lactose intolerant? Milk causes phlegm.
Okay.
I'm very sorry. As we continue with the podcast, now back to Scott Jones. Martha apologizes. She doesn't come right out and say, I'm not going to do it, but he still doesn't play her the tape. And that's interesting. What I was going to say is there's another moment in this episode where Clark kind of goes against the grain, what we think he's going to do. And that happens later in the episode, too. Which, or Philip, or whatever his name is. So then our last scene of the first act. Stan meets Oleg in a bowling alley. And Oleg is playing pinball, and he reflects on his youth of hanging out in Gorky Park and having to wait
like a half hour to play the pinball machine.
I have to admit, when he said Gorky Park, I immediately thought of the movie Gorky Park.
So did I.
Okay.
I don't think anybody can think of Gorky Park without thinking of the movie.
Nobody can think of Gorky Park without thinking of Gorky Park? Is that what you're going to say?
Exactly. The movie.
Okay. Who's in that movie? Was it William Hurt in that movie?
I was just going to say William Hurt, yeah.
Yeah. There's someone else in that movie, isn't there?
Well,
someone
probably. I don't think it was a one-man I don't think it was a one-man movie.
It wasn't an Eddie Murphy stand-up. William Hurt stand-up special, Gorky Park.
Oh, that
would have been live at Gorky Park.
That would have been awful.
He stands around like, when I was in the Big Chill, yeah.
Oh wow, William Hurt, Lee Marvin, Brian Dennehy.
Lee Marvin? Dennehy?
Joanna Pacula.
I have no idea who that is.
Ian McDermott. Ian McDermott, he was the Emperor in
That was the Emperor from the Star Wars movies, right?
Yep. He was
Emperor
Darth Sidious and Senator Palpatine.
Palpatine, yeah. Wow. Lee Marvin. Do you think that I saw that movie once. I think I fell asleep. I remember I was so excited to see that movie on video, and we got it. I was like, God, this won't stop. Just end.
Yeah, I think I remember falling asleep on that one too. Released in '83.
Wow. Maybe Oleg's going to quit he's going to quit the KGB and defect and write a book called Gorky Park. And it's going to be about the days when he used to play pinball, and they're going to reject it, and then he'll turn it into a spy novel.
Well, since we're halfway through '82, maybe next year, if we're in '83, where the show will mention the release of Gorky Park, and we'll talk about
it's like
whether it represents Gorky Park truly or not.
That doesn't look like Gorky Park. That looks like Montreal.
That is not Gorky Park as we recognize it.
That was a brilliant Russian accent.
Great. The 3 Russian listeners we had just left.
They're cursing us out in Russian right now.
That's right.
When they send us the curses, Do you think they'll send the translation so we can type it along the bottom?
I just cut and paste in the Google Translate.
Stan and Oleg meet. And Stan says Oleg says we've fallen into something together. Then he says, "Well, actually, I kind of pushed this." That's a great line.
But when he sits there, he goes, "We've both kind of fallen into the same thing, or something similar, or whatever he says is like we both fallen into." Did you not think that? I just started cracking up because I just.
And then he goes, "Well, actually, I pushed you." It's like, no, a little humor there. That's
the
great.
entendre, that they've both fallen into. Nina.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't think that. But he does say, "I have no interest in anyone getting hurt," and Stan's like, "Just so we're clear." He gets the Stan thing. Just so we're clear, we're not in this together. And then Stan becomes badass Stan. I'm sorry, I know we're not supposed to swear on it, but I can't. It's the only thing I can call him. I guess we could call him B.A. Stan, like B.A. Baracus. What's Stan's last name anyway? What's his Beeman? B.A. Beeman. Yeah,
there you go.
From now on, when he becomes badass, he's gonna be B.A. Beeman. All right. Rob. That's
we gotta get him. We gotta get him mocked up with a mohawk and gold chains.
I pity the fool who messes with Nina. Wait. Oh, but Rocky 3 wasn't out yet. Nobody would know. Was Rocky 3 in '83? Jeff is at work. I'm making Jeff work today because I do not have. My freaking computer on my phone is too slow back here. Jeff's got the old iPad. Is that an iPad you're working with?
Of course it is.
Okay.
Oh, 82.
82? What? But it was at the end of '82. Does it have a release date?
Hold on.
May
28th, 1982.
All right, so by the end of the season, he could be B.A. Beeman. I pity the fool. I pity the fool who messed with my Nina.
Yeah, but well, that's wait, but because when was the A-Team on?
After Rocky 2, 3. He became a star because of Rocky 3. I'm gonna say A-Team was 83 or 84.
Yeah, January 23rd, 1983.
Wow, that was a mid-season replacement.
Ran from 83 to 87.
Wow.
And they never killed one person. Fired 500,000 rounds of ammo over 4 years and never killed one person.
All those overturned cars, nobody got bloody. Nothing. Look, we don't mind if you blow up the car as long as the guy gets out unscarred. Okay. All right. And
it was the most ridiculous show for violence. I remember all the articles used to come out. They were talking about like, oh, TV's so violent now, and the A-Team, they fire so many rounds. Yeah, but nobody gets hit.
I would love to see them talk about that on this show, because this show is so... Have you ever watched Arrow? Oh my God, that show is so violent. Some shows on network television, I mean, point blank guys get shot. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What? That never happened on A-Team or Hardcastle and McCormick.
Hardcastle and Morgan? That was the spinoff that never took off.
That's a spinoff with Morgan Fairchild. My wife, Morgan Fairchild.
Oh, I'd have totally watched that. You kidding me? Morgan Fairchild. Oh,
yeah. What show was she on? God, what was her show?
Jesus.
Jeff,
I'll look it up.
Keep an iPad open. Anyway, Stan becomes B.A. Beeman and says, if you touch a hair on Nina's head, I will find you. Or he doesn't say that. If anything happens to her family, I will find you. He basically becomes Liam Neeson in Taken. I have a certain set of skills. And I'm going to make sure that you feel pain. And Oleg's like, yeah, whatever, B.A. And he walks away. Oh, wait, does Stan walk away?
I don't remember who walks away. Does he?
I think Stan walks away. Yeah, Stan walks away.
Hey, did you know this? Morgan Fairchild dated John Kerry in the early 80s. Huh.
John Kerry, the candidate?
Yeah.
He just got a lot cooler. Morgan Fairchild. I just think
During the early 1970s, Fairchild was kidnapped and held against her will on 2 separate occasions.
What?
Wow.
Wow. Okay, I'm not gonna feel bad for Morgan Fairchild. No way. Morgan Fairchild. Remember that character? Tommy Finnegan, the liar, Saturday Night Live, John Lovitz.
No,
What?
I don't remember that one.
John Lovitz is the liar.
Oh, John Lovitz is the liar. Yeah, I don't
You
remember
don't.
the. She did a lot of TV movies. I don't see TV.
She had a series. She had to have had one series. Because that's how she. Oh, it doesn't matter.
Wait, Search for Tomorrow. Well, she was on a bunch of stuff. She was on Kojak. She was on Happy Days, Bob Newhart, Policewoman. The Amazing Spider-Man TV show. You remember that show?
Oh, yeah, that was an awful show.
That was terrible. Dallas.
Dallas.
She had 3 episodes of Mork and Mindy. Loved Mork and Mindy.
Oh, see, that's what I was thinking. Morgan.
She had 38 episodes of Flamingo Road from 1980 to 1982.
Flamingo Road. That's the road.
Oh, and then Paper Dolls, then Falcon Crest.
Falcon Crest.
And then she just does a lot of one-offs from there.
I'm Friends. She played Chandler's mom on Friends.
She was in recently she was in Hot in Cleveland, Revenge, Chuck.
She's a working actress. I don't know why we're talking about Morgan.
I have no idea either.
Nothing to do.
Oh, Hardcastle and Morgan. That's why.
The violence of B.A. Baracus. All right.
Back to the show.
Back to the show. We come into Act 2. Elizabeth comes to Eric's house. And how awesome is Lee Turgeson? I'm going to miss him because he is so scary.
Yeah.
And the first roles I ever saw Turgeson in was he was on an episode of Homicide where he played a street cop who gets shot and loses his eyesight. And I believe his wife was...
oh, yeah.
Remember that? And who played his wife was... what's her face from The Sopranos? Who was on Nurse Jackie?
Oh, yeah. It was Carmela, yeah.
Is that Edie Falco?
Yeah, Edie Falco.
She played his wife. I believe she played his wife. And then he was on Oz. I don't know if you're speaking of Tom Fontana, but he was on Oz as well. He played the guy who was convicted for vehicular manslaughter, drunk driving, and he gets sold with J.K. Simmons, who is his Satan. And they become lovers, and it's just messed up. That show's messed up. So maybe he's taking some pointers from J.K. Simmons because he is scary as anything in this show.
Yep.
So Elizabeth walks in, and we find Lucia gagged and bound. And she says, "What did you do to her?" And what does he say?
He's like, "Well, I didn't kill her."
That's my favorite line. He's like, "I didn't kill her. That's what I did.
That's what I did."
It's awesome. So they strike a deal. And the deal, I'm going to there's like a minimal scene here, but we're just going to go on with this whole Nina thing in a minute. We're going to stick with Elizabeth and Larrick because a deal is struck. And the deal is what?
Well, the deal is that it's Larrick, it's my freedom for, he says, my freedom for her life. And basically it's, what's more important to you? Is it letting her go, or me going down to Nicaragua, getting you the information that you need, getting you the codes, and then I'm done, and then I'm out of here. So you give me I trade my freedom for her life, and and that's right. And so she says that'll work. That's great. And then Nina spies a corkscrew, or not Nina. God, Nina. I'm sorry, dark-haired Lucia
with the dark-haired woman with an accent. Sorry, it's terrible.
Whoa, profiling. Jeez.
Sorry. I was just trying to be honest. I wasn't trying to be a jerk. Sorry, ladies. Please come back. Don't run away. No. Oh, we lost our only woman listener. Okay. Lucia sees a corkscrew.
Both our dark-haired female foreign listeners just left us.
No, I think they're still listening. No, they're not. Lucia sees a corkscrew on the counter, and as soon as Larrick gets her untied, she grabs that corkscrew because she's crazy with revenge, Jeff.
Yep.
Crazy with revenge.
She goes after him, and that's just a bad move because she weighs probably like $110, and he's a Navy SEAL.
He is a Navy SEAL, and he's got her. What kind of move? Can you tell me? You know all those death moves.
I know the death moves.
Don't you like routinely on the internet when you're in between writing assignments? You're like, I wonder what the Navy SEAL death move is when you give it that line.
I just thought it was a sleeper hold off of WWF from back in the day. I saw Yeah, I saw Roddy Piper pull that move on Macho Man a couple times, and
Macho Man, Randy Savage. I love Macho Man. He was. I'm a macho. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna get a lizard in my throat if I keep that up. Ah, yes. And so Larrick says now he really puts Elizabeth to the test. So,
yeah, now she's really got to make her choice.
Her life or the job. Her life or the job. And what does Elizabeth do?
She just lets him kill her.
Chooses the cause. She chooses the cause. I think that's a move that will come back to haunt Elizabeth.
Well, the other thing too that makes that scene tough is that she's got the gun drawn. She's got the gun pointed at Larrick the entire time, and as Lucia's getting the life strangled out of her, Lucia's staring at her like, "Okay, help me out," and basically Elizabeth gets to see the light just fade out in Lucia's eyes.
It's awful. It is awful.
And then I like how when it was all done, he drops the body and walks up to her and he says, I'll get you the codes and I'll do all this. Now get that body out of my house.
Now get that body. Now, how do you suppose they do that? That's what I was wondering. Do you think they have like Russian fake UPS guys that come and pick up bodies?
It's like you always did in the 80s. You just roll it up in carpet and you just do get new carpet in the house.
Fake carpet delivery?
Yeah.
We're just delivering a new carpet. We're going to pick up the old carpet. And the old carpet is wrapped inside the new carpet so that when they get in there, they wrap up the old carpet with the body, carry it out. That's okay.
See? Yeah.
And then
they do it in Cleveland all the time.
That's how I made my money in the summer. That was my summer job. I'd pick up bodies. How do you think I got to the Coast Guard Academy? What's a scholarship? Speaking of, now, here's a question I have.
Does it have to do with the show?
Well, it's military-based. So, like, academies like that, do you pay for that? Is that like college? How does that work?
No, the taxpayer pays for it.
So if you get accepted to the Coast Guard Academy, or you get accepted to West Point,
yep,
you're basically getting. But the trade-off is you're like 4 years of your life is committed to the armed forces.
6 years, yeah.
You did 6 years? Is it 6 years?
Yeah.
Really? That's like that West Point too. Is it 6 years?
Yep.
Does the Marines have an academy, or they
go to Annapolis? When you go to Annapolis, you can graduate as either you get to choose either you want to go Navy or you go Marine Corps.
Got it. Air Force Academy? Air Force.
Yeah, you can't go Marines out of Air Force Academy. You go into the Air
Force.
No,
but there's an Air Force Academy.
Yep, Colorado Springs.
Okay, great. Sorry, didn't mean to jump off there. Sorry.
It always cracks me up when I'm going through like the top colleges in the country, and they give the tuition, and it's like Harvard, $47,000 a year, and this one $50,000, and you get to the military academies, it's 0,0,0,0,0.
And where are they ranked?
Very highly, actually.
That's good,
especially in the engineering departments.
Well, yeah, it's all about engineering now.
It's all ball bearings these days.
It's all ball bearings. You can never go wrong with the Fletch quote.
That's right.
You trying to challenge me? Trying to mess with me?
Oh, come on. That was softball.
I know. That was that one's out of the park.
Exactly.
Okay. Stan meets with Tina and says, I told you I wouldn't let anything to happen to you. And Nina continues to play Stan. I think there's a part of me that even is almost convinced that she is moved by Stan's actions. There's a part of me that thinks, oh, she's still moved. He did this for me. He decided that he would betray his country for me. But then in the next scene, she's playing and having video game fun.
I don't know. So. Well, the thing is
she playing him? I can't tell anymore.
I don't know because later on when Arcady warns her about he sees her and Oleg, making cutesy, and he pulls her aside and he kind of warns her about him. And then Oleg comes up and says, "Hey, I'm going out tonight. Going out dancing. Why don't you?" And she's like, "No, I can't do that. We're not supposed to be seen together." And she is, again, when she started off, she was just this secretary in the embassy, and now she's actually starting to be a pretty good. She's getting into this. She's good at this spy stuff, and she stays. and she's staying true to what her job is. So when Oleg is there saying, "Hey, come on, let's go, have a little bit of fun," she's, "No, I can't." And so I don't know. I don't know if I trust her feelings. I don't know if her feelings for Stan are anything more than just the job. And I don't know. She vexes me. I'm vexed.
Are you vexed?
I'm vexed. I'm terribly vexed.
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. I think, and since we're talking about that Oleg scene, it's interesting because Oleg kind of becomes a creep in that scene. For like the past few weeks, he's stopped being so creepy, but when she says, "I don't think I want to go," and Oleg says, he pretty much puts the press on. He's like, "Oh, well, you got to go,"
right?
And I'm like, "Oh, he's only because after what Ivanovich says, he says only after what he said about how it could be good for you, it could be bad for you, and then he puts that press on. I'm like, oh, he's a little creepy. Is he one of those creepy guys?
But then later on, when he's with Arcady and he explains the whole stealth thing, and they
that was earlier.
No, they have a scene later on in the fifth act. What's the one in the?
Oh, they're talking about the submarine.
Oh, yeah, and that scene, and that it was actually interesting that we'll talk about that in a second. But what Oleg brings up in that discussion is the same thing I was thinking when we first talk about the submarine thing. And again, it's moments like that where you like Oleg, and Oleg has he's a cool character, and I actually like him.
Yeah, he's an interesting. Again, it goes back to what we talked about at the top of the podcast, which is that they're all human. These are human characters, and they're interesting. They're flawed. They've got different shades, and I think that's what makes Oleg an interesting character. Obviously, is that he can be nice. I think he's a little creepy now too. I'm not so sure. So I don't know. Those KGB guys are the best liars I've ever seen. I have no idea what's going on with them sometimes, and I'm like, that's what keeps me going. Really? What are they going to do next? Meanwhile, poor Stan is. Stan is. I don't know what Stan's agenda is. And let's say, hey, there's another segue because we're going back in time, where Stan at the beginning of Act 3, Stan talks with Frank, and it's our only scene with good old Richard Thomas, and he says, "I want to go after Oleg." He's decided he's going after Oleg. Now I'm thinking to myself, well, couldn't Oleg just tell everyone that he gave him the FBI records? Isn't that a bad move for Stan?
Right.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
But is he so Nina crazy that he's got to protect her in any way possible?
Yeah, I think Nina's clouding his better judgment too.
It's too bad because smart Stan and B.A. Beeman are a good combination. Dumb Stan, a horny Stan, and B.A. Beeman. I think that's not going to be good.
No,
that might be bad. Although next week we see that he puts the full court press on, so who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. But Stan wants some code clearance from the Department of Defense. They won't give it because they handle all their own security issues themselves. And so Frank says, well, just go straight to the DOJ and see what happens. And we'll see what happens. But what happens first is the neighbors come home and they find that Henry is asleep on their couch with the television still playing.
It's just like we said, probably what we guessed was going to happen was that they were going to come in on him. I totally didn't think that he'd fall asleep at the end of playing the game. So he's completely asleep, and they just kind of look at each other. And then it
is a tiring game to play, man.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you have to think too much for television. Your brain gets tired. You get all cozy in the blanket. You've had a couple Twinkies and maybe a couple hot chocolate.
Yeah. And then Philip comes home, and the neighbors are staying in the house talking with
Bob
Elizabeth.
and Christy are their names, by the way.
Thank you.
Met Bob
Thank you for
Christy
that.
Before. Let me just say that, are they the coolest neighbors or what?
Yeah, they have to be.
I mean,
it's like, well, we're not gonna, we didn't press charges because we know Henry's a good kid, and
they have smiles on their faces. Like, okay, he was just playing the video games, and he was just drinking my 60-year-old scotch.
Oh,
he's a good kid. He's kids. It's a different era, Jeff. It's it's okay breaking and entering.
I'm trying to remember if if I had gone into a neighbor's house, taken the key out under the rug, gone in and played in television, didn't steal anything, if my neighbors would have been as cool. I'm not sure about that.
I don't think my neighbors would have been cool like that.
No.
And I don't think my parents would have been cool.
But
although, well, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but what was interesting about that scene was that it was, so clearly you've got your kid who's done this, and you're trying to keep a low profile, right? And you've got a kid who walked into somebody else's house and is playing this video game, and so Philip is kind of like, holy crap, he looks at Elizabeth after the neighbors leave, and he's just like, can you believe this? And she's just been out, she's twisted over the whole Lucia thing, and she says, Lucia was killed, and it was just funny. And the thing is so that's the third act of this, and yet we don't. Your kid just broke into somebody else's house, and we don't see them discuss this with Henry until the very end.
That's a good point. I did have a little issue with that because it's interesting to me. What I've always liked about the show, which they do really well, is the way that they juggle the responsibilities as parents and the responsibility of the job
right.
And it just felt like almost like a plot device, unfortunately, to say that, to set up Henry's great final scene, which was great. They waited too long to have that scene.
Yeah.
Because, or they waited too long for Henry to get caught. I don't know. Because
I'd have moved this caught part to later.
Yeah, because 2 days almost go by, it seems like.
Right.
They have all these other events happen before they sit down with Henry. And I'm like, all right, that is probably crueler than the punishment they could have dished out because obviously they're ignoring their son.
Well, yeah, because they go upstairs and Philip says,
like,
we're going to talk about this later.
Right, and they don't. And I'm like, unless unless they're implying that they did talk about it and he's just thinking about his punishment.
Hey,
I don't know.
Having been on the receiving end of we'll talk about this later, and then later being a day or two later. And,
has that happened to you?
Oh, yeah. It's awful.
2 days gone by?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's awful.
That never would have happened to me. I never would have.
Oh, it didn't happen all the time. Trust me.
Wow.
Several
that
things
really happened?
Yeah. And you just sit there and go, when's that axe gonna fall?
Wow.
Is today the day? And
those
are those times when you just suck up to your parents. You're like, hey, I'll make dinner tonight.
And I'll go shovel the driveway.
There's no snow. I'll do it anyway.
I'm going to go mow the lawn. It's the middle of winter. Oh, okay. Well, to me, that's never happened, which I guess I'm lucky, but I had other forms of punishment.
Oh, that's awful. It's psychological warfare, man.
Wow. The interesting thing about Elizabeth is she's devastated because Lucy is dead, and Philip is like blood hungry. This whole episode, he's like, "All right, let's go kill him. I want to kill him right now." He's mad, and but she's like, "I let him do it," and that's her guilt. She's just full of guilt, and she's like, she doesn't understand. It was for her country, and she's just so angry at Lucia. She's basically rationalizing, away the blame.
Yep.
Which is what you have to do when you're a KGB agent living undercover in the United States.
Well, it was a tough decision that she had to make. I mean, it's not a real big surprise because we saw what a loose cannon Lucia was.
No,
how her own need for revenge was going to get in the way of the cause. So something's going to happen to her. Yeah.
All right. Well, we've kind of covered everything in Act 3, so let's just move on to Act 4, shall we?
And I like this. Yeah, so coming up in Act 4, this scene I actually liked. And again, Kate shows... So, Philip...
Well, we're not with Kate yet.
What? I know. Well, I'm skipping ahead.
Well, you're skipping over the stand listening to the conversation about the MI5 guy who was a spy for the Soviets for years?
Well, yeah, because it really was.
I have expected you to research that and have a 6-page essay on it.
A dossier? No.
A dossier. Okay, never mind then. Stan doesn't get clearance. Okay, moving on. Philip goes to meet Kate.
So Philip goes to meet Kate, and as we talked about, he parks the car over on one side of town, which I thought he was going to ditch the car. And then he goes and gets in the car with Kate, and Kate's she's messed up about something. And And basically the gist is that the plans that they stole for the propeller, they found out, the Russians have discovered that the U.S. has been planting false plans and stuff at different bases around the country. And,
in anticipation of KGB spies stealing plans.
And
right?
Yep, and so the plans that they stole, the propeller ones they stole, ended up put on a Russian sub, and the Russian sub sank as a result.
Right. And that is hey, the cricket's back.
Cricket's back.
Yeah. Welcome back, cricket. Oh, wait, that's a Russian cricket. It doesn't understand me. If I was spoken Russian. I think that was a great little moment for Matthew Rhys in that scene, because his look of, like, he gets in the car, he's all ready to be like a dick to, sorry folks, male organ to Kate. And then she says, the submarine went down and 160 men are dead, and he's just devastated. Because it was his countrymen. But even when he first hears that, he's like, that's terrible. Then it's just like, when he realizes we gave them the wrong plans. And it wasn't his fault. I mean, it's not his fault that they gave the false plans. They didn't know that there were false plans. They just went and got the false plans. I wonder if this will lead to them re-examining every mission they go on.
But, and now I'm going to jump forward because it's relevant to this. Jumping forward to, this is the Oleg and Arkady conversation.
Yes.
Where Arkady he's devastated too. Because he had a cousin or a nephew.
He has a nephew who is in the Navy.
Wasn't on the ship. Wasn't on the sub, but could just as well have been. And so he's he's relatively close to this tragedy.
Sure.
But then Oleg said exactly what I was thinking, which was, okay, so you picked up bad plans. Okay, great. But the sea trials on the Russian sub should have taken 5 months. It was done in like 3 weeks.
And they put the wrong kind of propeller on the wrong kind of...
Yeah, so that's...
Propeller on the wrong kind of sub. Yeah.
So Oleg is like, we both made mistakes. Russia, they went to sea too fast, and when they didn't test enough, and we picked up bad plans, and it was just he was just the voice of reason, and you could see him.
Right.
He talked Arkady down. Arkady was kind of like, okay, that's a valid point. So, but
Arkady could never express that opinion.
No,
because,
and then this
poop rose downhill, so they're in the almost the bottom of the hill there, basically. A blame.
And the problem is that they're at a upper level, they're at a higher altitude for seeing the bigger picture than Philip and Elizabeth. So Philip, he doesn't know that they rushed this sub to trials and made all these problems. All he sees are, we got bad plans. So so now they are, they have to be suspect of any mission that they go on now.
Right, exactly. And another thing that Kate does say is that this whole Marshall Eagle thing is the perfect time because they'll expose U.S. forces training Contras on U.S. soil and expose the U.S. for the crimes that they are committing. And that is related to what we were talking about earlier, which was how we know our country did some bad things, just like their country did bad things, and have people who are fighting for these beliefs. We have Stan, who's fighting for the beliefs of this country. He's a good man. He doesn't know everything that's going on. Nobody knows everything that's going on. How would Stan react if he found out about the Contra?
Yeah.
And just like how would Philip and Elizabeth react if they found out about some of the terrible things that were going on in their country? So it's an interesting dichotomy there. Is that the right word? Dichotomy.
I believe so.
Thank you very much. Later on, this is probably the most. This scene I could relate to the most, because after Philip goes home and he has second thoughts about having second givings. Isn't even a phrase. Why did you let me continue to do that?
If I had a script before we started this, I would allow. You
could just say, Scott, stop saying second givings.
Stuff just comes out of your mouth that
you just let me ramble.
It's like a rare form of Tourette's.
You just let me go. I'm just gonna let him go, and if he makes a fool of himself, hey, I look better. I look like a smart guy.
Exactly. No, that's not a plan at all.
Let Scott be Costello. I'll be Abbott the whole time. It's all good.
No, but speaking of dichotomies, though, so when Philip leaves this meet with Kate and he gets back into his car, like you said earlier, he gets into his car and he's kind of like, as he approaches the car, he's kind of has this guilt about, he just bought a nice shiny new thing.
He has misgivings.
Yes, misgivings. Then when he's driving home, he and Stan pass each other. Yeah, just fill in the blanks. It's like I'm like doing Mad Libs here. Just so they pass
and Henry. It's like a game show. Vasily, no. Oh, Vasily, what?
Wrong.
Oh,
thanks for playing. Wah, wah, wah. So they pass each other on the
road.
Street. I was looking for street. The word was street.
Sorry. Well, it is drive.
So
the lane.
And when they just kind of pause, they're like, "Hey, Stan. Hey, Philip. Nice car. And they're both having a bad day. They're both having a bad moment. And but Stan sees Philip in the Z28, and Philip's like, "Oh yeah, business has been taken off." And Stan says, "Well, at least one of ours is." And then they keep going their ways, and Stan shows up at his house, pulls into his garage.
Yeah, and that's just like, to me, that's a scene that I can relate to 100%. Opens the door, bangs into a bunch of junk to the right of the car, tries to close the door, it won't close, he starts banging, yells, GD! Ah! And to me, it's like that garage is so tight.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a small garage for that era. And I felt like the prop department just put like extra trash cans and extra junk around, so
Noah
Emmerich would just bump into crap as he's trying to get in the house. Can't go. That's just like, you could just feel the frustration, the world closing in on Stan, basically.
Well, they have here's what I found funny was that they basically have the same. Exterior-wise, the houses seem similar.
But his garage is about the size of a condominium.
Philip and Elizabeth's garage, they've got plenty of room to knock a guy out and put him in a trunk and
secret passages and
all that stuff. And Stan's, he's got a little cupboard as a garage.
Poor Stan. Maybe they built out on the kitchen somewhere. Yeah. Did Stan forget about his wife's S graduation, by the way?
He did. Or he just wasn't going.
When was it? What day did that happen? Why would you bring that up if you're not going to show him forget or anything?
Because you just want to reinforce the disconnect between he and his wife, and they're just not on the same... And going back to that scene when she's like, "Oh, my graduation is tonight," and he was just kind of like, "Oh..."
I think she said Wednesday night.
Wasn't he sitting there with his briefcase and he was reading that brief, the
FBI
notes?
stuff that they stole,
and he closes the lid down, and then when the camera turns around and looks back at him sitting on the edge of with his hands inside his briefcase, I mean, that was like flashbacks to the days when you had the penthouse inside your.
That's what I was going to say.
Your little trapper keeper, and mom's talking to you, and you're just like,
wait, what? The Trapper Keeper?
Didn't keep it.
I thought you were going to say your mom was going to walk in and doing something else in those days, but
no, never happened.
Good. But you'd have the Trapper Keeper,
man. Stuff.
You see this hand? When I pointed in this direction, it's got a stealthy move that the mom can't. Oh, how quickly we become 15-year-old boys again.
This podcast would probably be half as long if we stopped laughing.
Stop. This week on Comrades, we talk about masturbation and the military enemies. Okay.
All right.
Okay, we come back. And we see Reagan giving a speech that he's not going to give for over a month.
Right.
They're talking about restoring our defenses instead of balancing the budget. And he's giving a really great rattle sabering speech. That really was in April, huh?
A rattle sabering speech or a saber rattling speech?
Saber. Oh, did I say rattle sabering?
Yes.
Oh, man. I'm a little dyslexic tonight. I should have had all that cough syrup. Name that movie. Come on.
Was Morgan Fairchild in it?
No. Someone else. Bill Murray. Harold Ramis.
Stripes.
Yes, there we go. All right. Somebody's driving the car. There's a taxi driver, and he's swerving.
Hold on, I had the speech that they... Oh, it was his Agenda is Victory speech.
Okay.
Because there's a great line in there I like.
There's a lot of good stuff in it. I thought the most fascinating thing was the part where he says, every time I've gone on, basically says he went on the campaign trail and he said, should I restore our defenses or should I balance the budget? And every time people wanted me to restore our defenses. I was like, really? Were we at war?
No, but back in the day, the with the Cold War.
But the Cold War had simmered. That's the thing. That's what I'm re-examining. I mean, I guess this is my
Not
sad...
me too, though.
I read it had simmered in the 70s. And it cooled down in the 70s. Our relations were getting better. And then one of the reasons everybody got mad when one of the reasons the communists got angry when Reagan got elected because he was a cowboy and he was gonna. Am I wrong? I don't know. I guess one of the things that this show is making me realize is that my attention to detail when I was a child in the 80s was not very acute.
It was more about music?
It was about music and comic books and movies and TV shows and getting good grades and the opposite sex. It was not about national affairs. And that carried over into college. And I really regret that now. I guess I easily can pick up a book and read, but why do that when I've got Jeff Marshall to give me all the information I need to know? What are you doing?
I'm looking for this.
I wish people see this when we do the podcast as a video feed in the near future because it's so fascinating. Watch me in my garage with a kayak behind me and a bunch of stuff piled behind me, and Jeff in his art room with I think there's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle behind him, and his face is glowing blue. Is that a Mutant Ninja Turtle behind you? That yellow piece of paper? What's that yellow piece of paper behind you?
That's artwork that my kids do.
No, to your right. Your other right.
Yes, it's my son drew a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
All right, very good.
It's Raphael.
Raphael, the red mask.
Yes.
That's right.
Anyway, there's a line in his speech where he says that if they want to put a fire sale, if they want to have a fire, here it is. We're the ones who wanted a bargain basement military. Wait a minute. He's criticizing the Democrats. And he says if they want to have a fire sale on national security, we'll definitely help them out or help them on their way or something like that. It was a pretty... never mind. I wish I could find the speech. Moving on.
You didn't bookmark it. Huh?
I did, but then I was looking up John Belushi and I lost it.
Blame me. See, they have these things called tabs, pal. And I don't want to... Jeff just looks like he's like, I'm going to reach through this guy, smack you upside the head, and leave it at that. Okay. Well, Elizabeth's listening to that speech. She's in a dark place for obvious reasons. She let, this girl she thought she'd be able to mentor, she let her die. And Philip is in a dark place. He gets into a dark place. I mean, he even goes, 160 of our boys were dead. I like how they use that line.
Yeah.
Because that's such a, that's such a military. Our boys in the Navy, and that also, by saying that, it's kind of a nationalistic type thing. It's like our boys, our guys are out there. So he's feeling that kind of national pride.
Right.
So that was an interesting scene. Because then Elizabeth goes off. She just goes off. He'll do anything. Look at Reagan. He'll do anything. He doesn't care. Kids, nuns, journalists. He'll kill anybody. And yeah, she's becoming Lucia. She wants revenge.
Yep.
Basically. And that ends our fourth act, and that leads us into the final act of the episode. And this is a really great episode. And Stan has a meeting with the head of the Department of Justice. I can't remember the guy's name. I only recognize him as Connor Smith, the actor, because I only recognize him because I worked with him in 1995. So every time I see him, I go, hey, that's that guy from Invader, which wasn't called Invader. But I thought that was I really liked that scene. I thought that scene was so cool because Stan I don't know if he's lying or not, because he says things like, you develop instincts, with all due respect, something is about to happen.
Yeah.
Is that him? Is he really believe that, or is he just trying to cover his tracks?
I took it that I believe that in him. I thought that he was, and I liked his... like the guy from the DOJ guy said, yeah, normally I meet with your superiors about this kind of stuff.
There are ways that we prevent people. You're the first FBI agent who's ever been in my office,
basically a chain of command, and Stan just decided to BA his way through it, and
good for him. And that's the Stan I like. Where is that Stan every week?
Yeah.
Not the Stan sad sack Stan with twitchy eye.
Not the Stan. Yeah, that's not action. That's not the Stan trying to close his car door in his garage.
Right. Yeah. Which, it's funny that you say that, because it was interesting. There was a moment with Martha early in this episode. We see Martha all the time at home, and she's kind of like a ditz, and she's
homely and frumpy and ditzy.
You see her in the office, and she's like, taking command of the office. It's like, look at this stupid file system thing. There's just top secret files going around in this robot car. Anybody could take it. I'm like, that's an interesting point there, Martha. Yeah. And she's like, I called the desk 6 times. It's like, she's pretty BA Martha.
Yeah.
And then Stan's the opposite. He's he's the same way. At home, he's just like, his life is unraveling, but he has this. Do you think? I just had a thought. Do you think Nina was playing him all the way back in season 1 when they had the affair?
Maybe. Well, now what I know about her now, I would say maybe, because she was using him to get what she wanted, which was, out of the embassy and somewhere safe. So I don't trust her at all now. I don't. Like I said, I'm vexed about her. I don't know which way she's leaning. I don't think. Yeah, which way she swings. I don't trust that her love, that she has true feelings for Stan. She's just using him for her own. She's only looking out for herself. Like Oleg said last episode. How have you survived so far? You don't have training. You're not an agent. You've just done it on brains and your beauty. So.
And that's how she got to Vasily, too.
Yeah. So, she's a dangerous one, that
She is. She's a dangerous type, to quote the Cars. That's a 1980s song, right? Or 1979, perhaps. I'm not sure. Okay, Stan meets with the DOJ, not G. G would be the Department of the Government, which would be everything.
Or it would have been a dog, so...
I'm going to meet with the DOJ. Really? You want to meet? Let's meet in the park.
Squirrel!
No, just sit. I got to talk to you. I need those files. Okay, files. Yes. We'll get the files. Oh, throw the ball. Okay. Really tired.
Yeah, let's wrap this up.
Wrapping it up. We'll be serious now. Then Stan says, I can stop him, but the GD bureaucracy is stopping. And I love the response was, Beeman, I am the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And Stan says, that's why I'm here.
And I
I'm
like that. I like that he didn't back down. That it wasn't like, Stan, I am the bureaucracy, and Stan was like, "Oh, no offense, sir. I didn't mean what I meant." I just like that Stan just kind of held his ground and just said, "Well, that's why I'm here."
I like Stan in this type of situation. I like when he believes so much in something that he's willing to. I think that's why he went undercover initially. When whatever it was that he went,
Yeah.
Well, we all think. What did we say? What did you think? You thought it was like a Sons of Anarchy thing.
I said I thought it was like Russ Cole and True Detectives.
What comes to mind with me is that remember that movie with Deborah Winger? She goes undercover with the racist things, the KKK. I think Tom Berenger is in it. Costa Garbus, I believe, directed the movie. Never mind. That's a movie in the 80s. But she goes under. I see he did something where he immersed himself so much in it because obviously he cared about something, and he did this. I don't know if he cares about the country. I think he does care about the country. He really believes in America. He loves America. This is the greatest country in the world. But he also believes in Nina, and it's just great when he's this way when he's not Sad Sack Stan. I mean, it's interesting to see that those two levels, but too much sometimes we just see the twitchy eye sad Stan.
So what if we see Stan go back to his covert roots? What if Stan basically sets up a plan that he's going to infiltrate the KGB, let the KGB think that he's been chained, that he's been flipped, so that he can report back to the FBI?
I think that would be awesome.
Then we'll see.
That would be awesome.
Then we'll see serious Stan. Then he's got to run that fine line between being caught as being a double agent and and his job.
He may have to take a lie detector and squeeze his anus. I just got that in there. I like to get the anus joke in there. Anyway, 15. Okay.
Wouldn't it be funny if he does have to take a lie detector and Nina gives him pointers and she pulls that out. She's like, "Well, squeeze your anus."
Yeah, she's like, "Imagine it's a wasp." And
the student becomes the master. Yes.
Right, but he can't speak Russian. I think Stan, that would be interesting. A little double. That would be cool. That would be really cool.
I think Stan's got to start playing a more integral part to. Right now, there's no real heat on the Russians. Like,
there was that in the first season, wasn't
exactly.
There? There was like that tense fear that
we've lost. Yep, we've lost the profiles, the pictures of the people that they were looking for.
Yeah,
partner.
Yeah.
We've lost that whole storyline. We need to get back to that. We need to get more pressure put on Philip and Elizabeth. Have them looking over their shoulders now, which they haven't needed.
No, they really haven't. That's an interesting. That's a really good point, Jeff.
I think that I have my moments. So,
well, I wasn't trying to make fun of you. I was trying to be supportive. I was trying to give you a compliment, and you had to go and make me feel defensive about saying something nice. But I'm going to finish my point. I think that we love the show so much, and we effuse about it every week. And this isn't the case of like American Horror Story, where we were both like, "What the heck happened?" by about episode 5, where it's like, and then our podcast became, picking apart everything that was bad because it was,
Right.
This is a show that has all these great points, and it continues to be one of the best shows I watch on television.
Absolutely.
But it does seem like that they've skipped out on some stuff that, like the whole pressure on Philip and Elizabeth. That stuff, to me, the show is less about that, and it's become more of an espionage show this season.
Yeah.
But without that, you're right. Without that kind of pressure cooker thing, if we could get caught, we couldn't get caught. And I guess they kind of had a little of that in the episode where Philip was in the safe house the whole time. But I still felt like, they're going to get away with it.
Right.
That episode, even though he's stuck in that house, and you think they're going to get in trouble. Yes, I still felt like they're going to get away with it.
And we said the same thing about Nina too, like passing a lie detector. First of all, the whole Nina lie detector thing, that was kind of a foregone conclusion she was going to pass. But even still, even if she doesn't, so what? How's that going to affect the show in the scheme of things? Stan's got to be the solution is Stan has to become he's got to become more of an integral part to this. And if you're taking, as we've talked about, if you take Gad out of it because he's being investigated, then it has to fall to Stan to pick up the mantle and take this take this storyline forward. Otherwise,
Stan needs to be put in a position like the movie No Way Out.
Exactly, absolutely.
Where Kevin Costner is an undercover. I don't want to explain to everybody seen No Way Out, but if you haven't seen No Way Out, whoo, what a great movie!
Right,
and it's a perfect Cold War type movie because I don't want to give away the ending, but the whole movie is about him trying to not get caught for a crime that he committed, and the whole time he's got to be one step ahead of somebody, and he's stuck inside. Where is he stuck? Is it the Pentagon?
Pentagon. Yeah, Pentagon.
He's in the Pentagon the whole time, and such a great setup they could do. Where I'm not saying they have to do that, stand stuck in the FBI headquarters the whole time, but that type of thing where he has to try and be one step ahead of something. I think that's what the first season of The Americans did so well. Was like Philip and Elizabeth had to try and remain one step ahead. Now, if they if they could do that with Stan, it would be interesting because now he has to be one step ahead.
Because the risk they're running right now is they're marginalizing Stan's storyline into a soap opera, and we have this very compelling story between Philip and Elizabeth and the family and all this stuff. But then Stan's starting to fall off to the wayside. They gotta bring him back in and make him a player.
Yeah, I don't have any problems with them trying to make bringing aspects of like Parenthood into The Americans.
Sure.
But you need to have. I like that, but they need to ratchet up the intrigue a little more. For me, I don't. And again, it's weird. I think the only reason we can say this now, I feel like we're justified in saying this because we are big fans of the show, and we're geeks sitting here talking about it an hour a week every week, and but we've seen every single episode, and once you watch a show for every single episode, you start to say, okay, this was great, but and you don't want to. I mean, there have been episodes where I said, no, this is the greatest episode ever, but I feel like there needs. And I hope that they do that. There's still time. There's time for them to pull all that together.
Right.
I mean, they still have to resolve what happened to Emmett and what's her face.
Yeah, and that's another thing that's been kind of like Larrick was the guy that they wanted to look at because he was the closest one to being. He was their number one lead that might have done it, but they haven't explored it. Now it's like, okay, now we need Larrick to get us in. And again, we've lost that story thread. And we can probably come back to it, but you had this intensity going for a couple weeks.
For like 4 weeks, it was a big deal.
Yeah. Now you've let that go. Now it's not a thing anymore, and we need to get back to that. All right. So
maybe I'm sure they'll tie it all together.
Yeah.
I have faith. Okay, so there's only 2 more scenes. Well, 3 more scenes. The most important scene, story-wise, plot-wise, was they kidnapped this guy named Louis Rendell. Now, here's something I have a question for you because when Philip looks, Philip and Elizabeth are looking at the plans to get into this camp. How are we going to get in the camp? I don't know. How are we going to get in the camp? I don't know. I'm telling you. And that's not what they said. That's terrible dialogue, and I would fire any writer that wrote that. Unless they were writing for Mad Magazine. But Elizabeth says, I think septic is the way to get onto this camp. And so they're going to get on through the garbage. That's septic, right? The garbage trucks, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so Philip looks at this ID for this guy named Louis Rendell. And he looks like he knows this guy. Am I mistaken? Did you get that reaction? Does he know this? Have we seen this guy before?
I've not seen the guy before. I didn't understand that scene. I didn't get.
Did you get what I was saying? Do you know what I'm saying when he's looking at his driver's license and Philip's like, he has a reaction like that guy.
Yeah.
I don't
remember seeing this guy before.
Okay. All right. Yeah. If anybody remembers and you're listening, please post it on their Facebook. I'll look it up again.
I thought it was just a moment of Alzheimer's on my part that it was something I should have known and I didn't. So.
But I don't. Anyway, so then they kidnap this guy and get information out. That guy that played Louis Rendell was great. I felt bad for that character.
But it was funny. What was funny about that scene was the interrogation techniques, good cop, bad cop, between Philip and Elizabeth, where Elizabeth's all in his face, like, tell me what I need to know and nod your head that you understand me. And he doesn't nod. I mean, the guy's terrified. He knows he's going to die. And so she walks away, and Philip comes up, and he, soft shoes with them, and he plays good cop, and he talks, and soothingly, and gets Lewis to tell him what they need to know. I thought that was just. I thought it was well played. Every time she interjects, she's just all sharp edges and hard, and he doesn't react. He doesn't.
Yeah.
So.
I think that this relationship between Louis Rendell and Philip plays into his reaction at the end, because Elizabeth's ready to kill this guy. She's ready to pop him. And she's throwing my Goodfellas terminology. She's ready to pop him.
No.
And no, she wouldn't pop him. That'd be punch him. She just wants to pop. Anyway, but Philip is like, no, I don't want to do that. I can't figure out. I'm just confused, because Philip's like, no, we'll just tie him up, leave him in the woods. He's not going to say anything. He's not a soldier.
Well, that's it. But that's the thing, and we've seen that in the season. He kills like when he needs to. She's willing to ice anybody who's just even remotely in the way or could possibly be a threat to the cause. Whereas Philip, I think he's growing weary of the body count, and if he can not going out and killing Larrick is one thing, because Larrick he's
a monster.
Yeah, but. Killing a guy just because he's driving a truck, that's not something that you need to do. And go back to last week when he killed that college kid and stuffed him in the scientist, whoever, and stuffed him in the wastebasket and carted him away. And then afterwards, I mean, Philip was struck by that. Like, yeah, I had to kill a guy today because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. What does that serve? And I think that's telling about Philip. And I think this is just a guy who's driving a truck, man. Wrong place, wrong time, and there's no need to kill him.
Right. I'm trying to find out who this character is. I'm sorry. But okay, there it is. We can move on while I look up this character's name. So, yeah, they decide they're going to leave him in the woods. And that's the resolution. And, of course, Elizabeth is like, what is your deal? And he's like, he doesn't have to die. So then we cut to Oleg and Arcady hanging out, talking about, like we talked about earlier, they're talking about the ship that went down. And it's cool to see Oleg talking about, if we find out that he has a brother who is a captain in Afghanistan, and they all serve and whatnot. But it's kind of like this bonding scene between Arcady and Oleg,
and that helped bond between them too, because Arcady looks at him and says, "Well, why do you have family in the you have status. You don't have to have."
Yeah, you could be working, a desk job in Moscow.
Why do your parents or why do your family have to serve? And he's like,
we all serve.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that endears him a little bit to Arcady. And then I really like him talking about, what he was talking about with the ship and the Russian trials, and that I think that tempered Arcady's guilt over what they had done. And basically the gist is that, hey, we're all culpable. Mistakes are made all across the board, and it's not just our fault. It was a good scene. It was one of my favorite scenes between those two guys.
Yeah, and you didn't mind reading the subtitles either.
No,
good for you.
Because otherwise, I wouldn't have understood what they were saying.
So, finally, we get to the last scene, which was probably the most heartbreaking scene of the entire episode. And probably the biggest theme of the episode, which is Henry has basically a monologue, because Philip and Elizabeth don't say anything in that. And I don't think do they say anything? They don't. It's all Henry.
I don't think so, yeah.
They come in, they look at him, and he just starts talking about, I've been really thinking about this a lot. And he confesses to his crime, and then he says, I'm a good person. I'm a good person. He just keeps repeating that, and he's crying, and it's just so heartbreaking, but he also says something that's really important. He says, they weren't home. You weren't home.
Yeah.
I didn't think it would be anything. But when he says that you weren't home, to me, that should have crushed.
Absolutely.
Because now that goes back to the statement at the beginning of the episode where I was talking about if it comes down to a point of choosing between, the country and a person, and in this case,
family,
what would they do? And I think that they would end up choosing a family.
And I like the writing that it wasn't the typical ABC after school special trope where it was like, you guys, where he's just landing the blame on them solely. Well, you guys are never home, so I had to go. It was.
But I think that he's grown up with that. He's like a latchkey kid. He's used to them not being home, and he's saying, you weren't home. I couldn't, nobody was home.
Right.
So
you weren't here. They weren't here, and yeah, it was just. He was just painting the perfect storm of things that brought it all together. And the other thing I took away from that resonated with me was that when he says, they think I'm a monster or they think I'm a really bad person, and I'm not. And when you're a kid, the perception, what other people, how they perceive you is. I think you can almost not care what your family thinks of you, but what your peers and your friends think of you, that carries even greater weight, and he's got that to deal with too. So, it was a very compelling scene, very believable scene.
Yeah. And like I said, it was, that had me choked up. That one, that had me choked up a lot. And I get, even though we just spent 5 minutes critiquing or being hard on the show for things that they dropped or we felt that they dropped, this kind of carries back to what the whole season has been about, which is about family.
Yep.
That scene had me thinking about so many things that are going on in the show and how we've talked about how Paige is going to react when eventually she's going to find out about her parents. She has to. That's just great drama that have to come into play at some point. How's Henry going to react?
Well, and that's the thing too, is that there's so many plates they have up in the air that are it's like when my wife and I watch House of Cards. There's so much drama and soap opera that goes on that, especially this season, you find it can't be believable because who's running the country? If you guys are dealing with all of this stuff, no one's running the country.
Right.
Philip and Elizabeth are doing so much spy stuff and keeping the cause that there's no way you can keep watching the kids and doing what the kids are. No wonder your kids are off doing what they're doing because you're not watching them. So it's there's got to come a point where, like you said, you got to figure out where loyalty and where the importance lies.
And, it's an interesting thing that you just said that, and that makes me go back to critiquing the show, which saying the death of Emmett and his family had them on such high alert that when Elizabeth just says, "Where are you going?" "Oh, I'm going out," it was only a few episodes earlier that she was like, "I'm going with you."
Right.
There was that chain around them to try and see where they were. So
you're right. And then when he goes over there for the first time, she's like,
just like, "Just be back by dinner."
Yeah.
How quickly she slips back into the character that she was, as opposed to this character in the beginning of the season who was so scared for the life of her family.
I see this conflict between Philip and Elizabeth with the whole sense of family and what he brought up today or this week with aren't there things about being here that you like? Aren't there some good things about this? I see that rift widening where Philip is going to be more about the kids and this whole thing with Henry going over to the neighbor's house. B&E over there and stuff that's going on with Paige. They're losing contact with Paige. She's kind of going off the grid.
Yeah.
Philip's going to be more about, look, we need more about family, but Elizabeth's going to be like, no. Family is just, she's got to make that choice. Is family just the cover?
Maybe she's the one that has to make the choice.
I think she's going to have to because it's.
And it's interesting that when you say that, when you bring that up, it does make me go back to the episode of the Safe House and all the talking about icicles and all the talking about the homeland and stuff like that. And that episode, I remember we talked about how we felt that at least we felt that Philip was, obviously thinking of Mother Russia and all this stuff, and how he missed home, and did he have regrets and all that stuff. But now, what you just said, I wonder if all the events that transpired in that episode, talking about the home, talking about what is home, what is the sense of home, where is your home? Is he going to realize my home is with these kids? My home is here. I wonder.
My home is here in the U.S. with these kids because this is a good life. I'm still loyal to the homeland, but it's here in the U.S.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with buying the cool car and living the lifestyle here. There's nothing wrong with that if your ideology is still back home. But right. Elizabeth has never been able to separate that, never been able to have those two as two distinct things. It's do the mission. I mean, what's interesting is I almost would want to be in a room with her and go, what is your sense of what you're doing? Like, you're going to come over here and you do this mission for X number of years, and then what? You're going to go back to Russia? Is that what's your vision, Elizabeth, of what your role as a spy is? Because you're not going to be doing this, into your 90s. At some point, you're going to go, I'm done, right? So what do you do then?
Then they take her back to Russia, I guess. Is that what happened to Claudia? We don't even know what happened to her.
Yeah, we don't.
She's just gone off the grid, too.
So that's to me is interesting. Is what is Elizabeth's vision for what she's going to be, or does she just she's like on I think of like a foreign service, someone in the diplomatic security service, or a foreign diplomat that you spend a couple years at a an overseas site. Well, you're over there for a couple years, but then you come back to the U.S. Does she see herself as the same kind of thing? You do a tour of duty in the U.S. and help Mother Russia out, and then go back to Russia? I don't know.
I don't know either. That's an interesting question. Well, all right. Well, we just finished this episode. It's only taken us 2 hours.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's less than 2 hours.
Yeah, it's an hour and 50 minutes.
Because we had all the problems with Skype. And we were trying the Google Chat, the Google Hangouts.
Well, it's actually an hour and 50 minutes. I'm
sorry. Well, then we'll rush this out so we end it for 2 hours. So let's get to the random crew members of the week. You have a random crew member of the week, Jeff?
I do. Random crew members of the week. Ready?
Go. Yes.
I have Katie Bova.
Katie Bova, go on down.
She is a property buyer.
Oh, she buys properties. Oh, no. Yeah.
Property buyer.
Well, the property department is the prop department. But
I know, but she was a property buyer. And this isn't the first show that she's been a property buyer on. So is property props? Is property...
Or is it property they wouldn't buy
real estate.
Land. They wouldn't buy real estate. Because they rent that. It's all rental because you're in temporary. The production shuts down.
Maybe she's buying cars. Property? Is that the car?
Buying cars.
But then they have a car wrangler.
What? That is an interesting title I've never heard of before. Property buyer.
All right. So anyway, moving on. She did Winter's Tale, where she was the set decoration.
She's definitely a property. That's definitely prop department. If she's doing set decoration, she's props. That's all right.
She was a set dresser on Wolf of Wall Street, and she was a set decoration intern on Salt.
All right. Wow. Sorry. I'm going to say she's in the prop department. She buys props.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying.
So then we also have Nick Shakespeare. Great
name. Nicky Shakespeare. Nicky.
He's a storyboard artist.
Probably hates being called Nicky. Sorry, Nick.
Done work on Orange is the New Black, Royal Pains, Damages, and Blue Bloods.
I wonder what kind of storyboard drawings they do for a TV show like this.
I don't know.
Okay, go ahead.
And then there's Duke Scapa.
Oh, what a name, Duke.
Right?
Duke. Yes.
Property master. What's a property master?
He's like the boss of props.
Okay. Well, he's done work on...
He works with, our previous?
Katie Bova.
Yes.
White Collar, Carrie Diaries, Transamerica, and Flight of the Conchords.
Ah, nice! Flight of the Conchords. You ever watch that show?
Nope.
Awesome show. Do you have HBO Go?
I do.
Check it out. You can watch the episodes on HBO Go because it's an HBO series.
All right. Good plug for HBO.
Well, no, I'm not trying to plug HBO. I'm just saying that you can watch it on HBO Go.
No, I know, but I'm just also saying that it was a good plug for HBO.
Okay. HBO, if you want to give me free HBO, then by all means contact my DirecTV agent and have them give me free HBO. I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think so. I don't think so. Well, Jeff, this has been great fun. Thank you for spending your Easter Sunday and next Monday morning. What is the Monday after Easter called?
Day after Easter?
Okay, thank you. All right.
Post-Easter Monday?
Post-Easter Monday. Somewhere we're setting ourselves up for a downfall in the afterlife by having this conversation. Jeff, it's always a pleasure talking to you. You are one of my closest friends. I love talking to you. I must tell you one thing, though. I'm an employee of Cartoon Network and the Turner Broadcasting System.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yes, and the views and opinions expressed on the Comrades podcast are my own and do not represent those of the parent company. Did you know that?
I had an inkling, but now you've made it.
I'm glad I cleared that up for you. If Jeff, you know what else? If you're interested in donating to the Great Strides, which is the nationwide Cystic Fibrosis Foundation fundraiser,
I am. Tell me how I can.
Well, you can find out information by going to the Comrades Facebook page. I posted a link there. Or you can go to cff.org/Great Strides. You can find out how to form your own team in your area because they have these walks all across the country. Or you can just donate. If you want to donate to my team Jacob, which is named after my son, you can contact me through the Facebook page, and I will set you up with the link, and you can make a donation. How's that sound?
That sounds
all
easy enough.
Awesome, man. I'm glad you asked. Thank you. And on that note, I think that we can head on out into the great unknown.
And for me, at least to bed.
Well, you're going to dream. Dream to the big unknown. All right. Thank you for listening. And happy Easter, everybody. And
we'll see you next week.
We'll talk to you. I'll see you next week.
Oh, that's right. We won't actually see you. We'll talk at you next week.
At some point, our podcast will be on AMC because they have nothing better.
That's right.
Let's put on a podcast about our competing network. Okay, great.
All right.
Bye. If you would like to donate to help pay for this and other Southgate Media Group podcasts, simply go to our website, southgatemediagroup.com, and click on the donate button. It can be as little as $1 or, well, as much as you want. Help keep this fun going by supporting this and our other shows. Thanks again for listening, everyone. You're the best fans in the world.